6 setup mistakes make new tent campers cold, wet, uncomfortable, or unsafe. Choosing a low site, pitching under dead limbs, pointing the door into the wind, leaving the rainfly slack, sleeping on a slope, and arriving too late to pitch in daylight. I'll show you what goes wrong and the simple fix for each. A low site can leave your sleeping bag damp and pull heat from your body. A falling branch can penetrate the tent and cause severe injury or death. And a rushed pitch can let the fly wick water into the inner tent. The problem usually is not a missing gadget. It is cold air, runoff, wind, gravity, and condensation reaching a shelter that was placed badly. I've spent my whole life sleeping on the ground by choice, and those small decisions come due at 3 in the morning. We'll start with the ground, then look up, turn the tent into the weather, tension the fly, use slopes properly, and finish with the mistake that makes several others happen together. The lowest, flattest patch is often where the night gets coldest and wettest. During storms, valley bottoms, canyons, and low spots can become flash flood channels. Rising water can inundate the tent, sweep away gear, or trap you after dark. If rain is possible, reject any place that looks like a water route and move higher with a clear way out, even if the lower ground is flatter. On a clear, calm night, the ground loses heat. Air beside it cools, gets denser, and flows downhill, settling in basins. Cold air behaves like invisible water, finding many of the same places rain will find. Lake level and valley bottom sites can be about 10 degrees colder than nearby ground higher on the slope. Near water, humidity and wildlife traffic can also increase condensation and encounters. Before unpacking, walk the site. Look for scoured soil, shallow channels, pushed leaves, and depressions. Choose the middle shelf, slightly higher ground, sheltered from an exposed ridge and away from the water's edge. Cold air pooling is strongest on clear, calm nights. Wind and cloud mix the air and reduce the difference. In a managed campground, rules or a fixed pad may limit your choices. Use the space allowed, but do not ignore a visible drainage line. The ground can look perfect while the branches above it are not. The ground can look perfect while the branches above it are not. A dead or weak branch over a tent is called a widowmaker for a reason. Wind, heavy snow, wet loads, or freeze-thaw damage can break a compromised limb loose. A large branch can punch through tent fabric and strike somebody asleep underneath. A tent gives you no meaningful structural protection. That can mean blunt force trauma, severe injury, or death. So before you lay out the tent, look up. Scan the whole area above the footprint. Look for dead, leafless limbs among healthy foliage, cracked branches, large limbs hanging loose, and trees that look unstable. Then step back far enough to see the trunk and the branches together. Do not pitch directly under an obvious hazard. Move into open ground or use shade from a tree that is structurally sound. And I will be honest about the limit here. Widowmaker identification is imperfect for a non-expert. Some damaged branches are not obvious, and tree management rules change the risks between a managed campground and wild ground. If you cannot tell whether a branch is sound, choose another site. Do that before you unpack the sleeping bag, not after dark when you are trying to diagnose a tree with a headlamp. Shade is a benefit, not a reason to sleep under a branch that has already quit being part of the tree. And once the ground and the canopy are dealt with, there is another hazard to read: the wind coming straight through the door. Wind direction is part of the pitch. Point the door into the prevailing wind and driven rain. Cold air and debris come straight into the entry, soaking clothing or a sleeping bag and increasing cold stress. Before staking, watch grass, leaves, or smoke to find the wind. Put the main door away from it and avoid presenting the broadest unsupported panel broadside to strong gusts. The view can wait until breakfast. In bad weather, the useful view tells you where rain is coming from. Design matters. Manufacturer testing on single entrance tunnel tents supports putting the vestibule end into the wind, but dome and asymmetrical tents may differ. If you rent or borrow one, identify the door, vestibule, largest panel, and main pole line, then shelter the door and avoid broadside exposure. Do not force one rule onto every tent. A grill or fire closer than 15 feet upwind, without about 3 feet of clear ground, can send sparks into fabric and smoke or carbon monoxide into the tent. Keep that distance and clear space. Never use a combustion heater inside a tent or camping vehicle. Carbon monoxide can cause headache, confusion, unconsciousness, and death. Turn the door away from the weather. Then check the fly, because a good orientation is wasted if slack fabric touches the inner and gives water a path across the shelter. A waterproof fly is not a magic roof if it is lying against the inner tent. When the outside of that fly gets wet, contact gives water a path across by capillary action, and condensation gathers at the same contact points. In a double wall tent, the air gap is doing real work. So first, stake the fly and guy lines until the fabric has a clean shape and the fly sits visibly clear of the inner. Drive the stakes at roughly 45 degrees away from the tent. Then walk around the perimeter and check with your eyes and fingertips for any place the two layers touch. Adjust the nearest stake or guy line. Do not tighten every line until the pegs or seams complain. Guy line tension depends on the fabric, the soil, and the stake design, and there is no magic number. If the fly touches the inner, rain can wick through, condensation can wet the insulation and sleeping bag, and cold then conducts through that damp material. Keep the sleeping system protected until you need it, and open the vents when conditions allow. Condensation cannot be removed entirely. You breathe moisture into the shelter, and humid air has its own say, and a strong four-season tent does not escape this. It may handle more wind and snow, but it can still wick, condense, and wet out. The next mistake is different. Gravity takes over, and the question becomes where your body spends the night. A gentle slope is not automatically a bad campsite. In fact, a slight incline can help rain move past instead of ponding under the floor. The mistake is pitching on it without deciding where your body and the runoff are going. Gravity works along the slope, and smooth tent floors, pads, and sleeping bags do not always provide enough friction. If your body runs parallel to the fall line, you can slide downhill all night. If your head is downhill, blood can pool in your head, causing headaches or dizziness, and sliding can push you into a cold corner where drafts and condensation are worse. So choose the shallowest usable incline. Keep your body perpendicular to the slope, with your head uphill and your pack or other gear downhill as a stop. Keep the door and low edge out of the drainage path. Before staking, kneel inside the empty tent and identify uphill, downhill, and the fall line. Rotate it now. Do not wait until 3 in the morning to discover the hill has opinions. I camp on the ground by choice, but I have no interest in negotiating with gravity for 8 hours. Experienced backpackers may do this without thinking. When the terrain changes, balance drainage against comfort. If the slope is too steep to keep your head uphill and your body still, move. And all of this assumes you arrived with enough light to see the slope. The last mistake makes that much harder. The last mistake is arriving too late to pitch in daylight. A headlamp shows the next few feet, not the drainage line beyond the tent, the weak branch above it, the water edge, cliff, or animal trail nearby. Aim for roughly 2 hours before sunset. That is aspirational. Roads and check-in times may make it impossible. If you arrive late, inspect overhead branches, low ground, water routes, and escape routes first. Then check fire distance. A tent closer than 15 feet upwind of a grill or fire risks sparks, smoke, and carbon monoxide entering the sleeping area. Never use a heater or combustion appliance inside a tent or camping vehicle. Carbon monoxide can cause headache, confusion, unconsciousness, and death. Pitch in this order: safe ground, water and fire separation, door away from the wind, stakes seated, fly separated from the inner. Keep the sleeping system dry. In rain, use a tarp first, only if you have practiced it. I camped with my sons as they grew up, and a fast pitch was useful only when it was accurate. If check-in removes the 2-hour option, use every minute of daylight and rehearse the exact tent at home. Darkness should change visibility, not competence. Next, we need to see where these rules bend for tunnel, dome, single wall, and winter tents. The rules bend with the tent, but they do not disappear. A tunnel tent may have a tested vestibule into wind orientation. A dome or asymmetrical tent may want something different, so check the manual or the orientation marks before you stake it. Do not point a generic rule at a tent that was built another way. A 3-season tent can suit moderate winter conditions, but heavy snow or extreme wind can exceed it. A single-wall shelter has less separation to manage condensation, and condensation cannot be eliminated in any closed shelter because you and the damp air are supplying moisture all night. Match the tent to the weather, ventilate when you can, and leave before conditions exceed what it can handle. If you only camp in warm, dry summer weather, cold air pooling matters less as a safety issue. Low ground can still be colder and damper, and humid nights can still wet the inside of the tent. In a managed campground, a pad or rule may limit where you move. Use the least hazardous permitted position. Before you crawl in, keep the same order. Look above, read the ground, check fire and wind, separate the fly, then put your head uphill. I would rather spend a few quiet minutes reading the site than carry a heavier answer to a problem I created with the pitch. Once the tent is right, there are still ordinary camp decisions that can put you in danger: fire, weather, ground, and the way you settle in after dark. In the next video, the big mistakes putting you in danger at camp, I will show you what to spot before a normal evening turns into a long night. Pitch before the light goes.